1. Elena's lifespan would be the same as a wild wolf's. Now, a wild wolf's lifespan is normally between 9 and 10 years. So this means that from the point of the curse being cast upon Elena, you know, she will just have a natural lifespan of 9 to 10 years from that point. What Elena needs to do, and she knows this and she's bound by this, is she needs to find an apprentice, and she needs to do it quickly in order to pass the curse on. If Elena was to die before finding an apprentice, the curse would also die out, and this is just not something that the person with the curse would be able to consciously fight against. So they are bound by that, and they really, you know, they know that that's what they have to do, that the curse has to live on. So Elena is bound to finding an apprentice as quickly as possible, and the way that they bond is through bite. So she bites her apprentice and it continues the curse. The apprentices are always women. They're always other women. Once the apprentice is found and bit, the she-wolf must train her in the ways of the hunt. The pair then work together and they find the flesh of men. It's always just men, and that's not being, you know, that's not really for any specific attack or anything, but it's just because of the basis of the story between, you know, Elena and Hugo, and you know, I don't know, it's just what Katia decided. It's not my curse, but it's always just men, and the pair need to work together to find this flesh so that the she-wolf can eat the flesh of the man that they've slayed to stay alive. Okay, so this is very important. They need to eat the flesh of the man to stay alive. Well, the she-wolf does. The act of killing the men takes place once a month upon the night of a full moon. This is also very important because there's just a very specific window in which the act of the killing needs to take place. The tracking for the hunt can start well beforehand, you know, anytime before that full moon. You know, they can sort of track who they want and things, but the important thing is that they need to get that person into that position on the full moon night. The bitey, as I shall refer to her as, in our case in the short film, it's Tony, it's Amy, you know, Tony's character Amy. She's the bitey, the apprentice. They feel everything that the she-wolf feels, and this is another thing that we sort of explore a little bit. She can feel the power of the curse pumping through her veins. She can feel the thirst and the venom inside her. You know, she can pretty much feel every single thing that the she-wolf feels, and that's through their connection. And that's also very important, because it's all part of the, you know, the sort of passing on of the ritual and everything that goes with it. Now, here is a very important part. The bitey remains inert until her maker dies. That is, she does not become a werewolf or she-wolf until her maker dies. Now, the maker may die naturally after her sort of 9 to 10 year span is through, or if she dies in any way whatsoever, the curse automatically then is passed on to the apprentice. So this is why the training period, if you like, is so important, because you know, there were cases after Elena where the she-wolf carrying the curse had died suddenly or whatever, and you know, the apprentice is sort of left really not knowing what to do, and going very hungry and making lots of mistakes, and you know, really endangering the curse in terms of it potentially dying out, and you know, that's a no-no as far as the curse is concerned. Being the apprentice is incredibly painful. It's like the feeling that you want to burst but you just can't. You're on the precipice of being a werewolf without the release, and you know, I've never experienced that, but I can't imagine it's a nice feeling. So yeah, so you know, Tony and I spoke a lot about this as well, in terms of how would that character carry that, you know, carry that on her, in the way that she walks and in her face, and you know, she's carrying that around all the time, and yet she needs to show, you know, all different sides to all different situations depending on, you know, what she's trying to do. So put on top of that the fact that Amy is very nasty. I mean, she's proper bitch, and she's quite an angry human being anyway. You then have this really dangerous character, and yeah, I think that's quite important, because you know, an apprentice would never kill their maker to make their pain go away. You know, if Amy could, you know, if Amy was strong enough to do that, she probably would. But as I say, the curse is stronger than all of them. So an apprentice would never do that. They would never kill their maker to make the pain go away, or just, you know, say, right, I want to be a she-wolf already. They love their maker, you know, very similar to, you know, the sort of vampire allegiance and the connection between vampires. They love their maker more than anything. So they're, you know, it would be like killing a part of yourself, and they're not going to do that. The bond is incredibly strong, and sometimes even sexual. In fact, in a lot of cases it does become sexual as well, just because of they get caught up in the intoxication of it all, and not between all she-wolves and apprentices, but I don't know, I just think it makes it more interesting if they do, if their intensity is bonded in a physical way as well, because it's, you know, it's about flesh and meat, and I just think it makes it more interesting and more fun personally. So in our story, the two characters, they do have this kind of quite intense relationship, and Amy's probably more into Lucille for these reasons, for the fact that, you know, she adores her maker and just literally would and does do anything for her. So there's that. Lucille, she's a much more gentle character, even though she's the she-wolf. You know, her intent, she only wants to hurt and hunt and eat bad men, as it were, you know, kind of Dexter style. And she made that very clear to Amy from the start. Amy, who's still technically human in our film, when we, you know, sort of come into their lives in that particular, you know, time period, Amy's is technically still human, even though she's got this sort of, she's been bitten and she's got all this sort of going through her body and things, and she does not eat the meat of the men. She doesn't eat it. I like to play with the idea of the human, even though they're not entirely human, but the human being more monstrous than the monster. It's a theme that, you know, Clive Barker loads of writers and directors and things choose that theme, and it fascinates us because I think, I don't know, it just taps into expressing a lot of the very inhumane behaviours in humans, and as a way of understanding that and kind of contextualising it, and yeah, just discussing it and exploring it and understanding it. And I love that. I love that in horror movies where the human is more monstrous than the monster, because it really just, it's like putting a mirror up to you know, human behaviour, and sort of trying to understand the limits and the just all the different places where human behaviour can take you, and choices and things like that. I find it fascinating anyway. I'm totally rambling now, sorry. But anyway, in our story, Amy the human, more of a monster than Lucille, who is the technical monster in our story. Okay, so that's a little bit about Amy and Lucille. Now, what about the women that came before them? And this ties into the music. Obviously, the 1800s. You know, I wasn't going to like go into all the women between the 1800s and where we were now, but I thought it was quite interesting to maybe go back to two couples before Lucille and Amy. And the reason that I wanted to do that was because I just thought it would be nice to have something more recently present that could be dragged in through the present characters to give you more of a feel of something that is old. Now, just listening back to what I've said in my head there, that doesn't really make any sense when I say it out loud, but I think I kind of know what I mean. So, how do you portray something ancient when you're just looking at two characters interacting in a modern day setting? Well, what I wanted to do, as I say, was give the girls the backstories of the two couples that came before them, sort of like a ancestry.com type exercise, and then through the music in the film and some of the set design and the art design and the props and the dialogue, just through small things like this, try and sort of bring those older characters. Now, when you're watching the short film, you know nothing of this. It's never, none of that is ever explained or gone into. I mean, I think at the end, Lucille she mentions Ivana's name once, because they're talking about the passing on of the ritual and everything like that. But really, I wanted to stay away from a lot of exposition and, this, that and the other. That's not important for me. I mean, that's what this kind of video is doing. It's giving you the full backstory and everything. But when you watch the film, it's really just supposed to be like a proper glimpse at what's happening, and therefore, the two women know where they've come from and everything. So there's no need to really to go into that too much. I just wanted to sort of allude to it a little bit. Meanwhile, all the cast and crew there, they all know, and so that was nice for us to kind of all be at that point and see this moment, as it was happening